Shemai for the eye, and welcome back to my channel. My name is CaitlinAnwyn for anyone who's new here, and let's get back into building in Planet Zoo. And today I am building a Babirusa habitat, and this one was suggested to me by Emily, which I will put the full comment down there. I really appreciate everyone's suggestions, and I really didn't need to be encouraged to make anything more pink and frilly, but thank you for that. So the pinkest, frilliest thing I could think of was a princess castle. I always like to put a little Welsh twist into my builds as well. And Wales has the most castles out of any other country in the world, so I love building castles. To build what I had in mind, I needed a decent amount of room, so I've gone with like this nice curvy area next to the Malayan tapirs. And I'm using the aquatic pack fencing because I knew I could recolor this, and I wanted to make sure everything was pink, or as much as I can was pink. And this barrier, you can recolor like the supports and the top bit into like this nice metallic-y pinky color. I love it. I didn't want to build anything really large for this like shelter because the other blueprint shelters aren't like super humongous. Some, I think, for the larger habitats can be quite large, but like for giraffes and stuff. But I didn't want it to be too big because these little piggies, I've been building this and calling them little princess piggies. Because I'm building them a castle, so that's what the Babirusa are to me. I love the idea that like the juxtaposition of having like a not so cute animal have this like really adorable habitat. I love it. And to start with, I needed to make like little towers for my castle. And to do a small rounded building, what I did is I built two walls and put them at the smallest grid size, so they were 1 meter apart, and that'll mean that I'll get a 1 meter size circle at the end, and put these column pieces, which are from the Southeast or the East Asia style, and then selected the two that were opposite each other and slightly rotated them so they were getting into a circle. The opposite columns actually allows it to the rotation to be directly in the center, so it helps everything be nice and round. I could have used the round wall pieces, but that would have made it like 4 grid size wide instead of 1, so I wasn't really keen on having something that large for a shelter. This ends up being quite large as is, but some of the ones that I have seen on Steam Workshop were huge. Like they would have been great for like a centerpiece for like a nice big zoo, but not a habitat shelter. Still a decent size for a castle for these little princess piggies. They definitely have a lot of space for their habitat. So for the roof, again, using the same trick for the opposite angles. And then I used like this curved piece from the East Asian style to make like a cute little flicky out roof. I wanted to add in extra little details like that to make it even more adorable and pink and frilly. Definitely took that suggestion to heart, and I had so much fun building this. If you can't tell, I love making adorable things like this. Like realism's fun, like adding all those flowers last week was okay, but making these cutesy little habitats and just having fun with it was great. I had so much fun. So thank you, Emily, for that suggestion. I have had a whale of a time building over the past couple of days. And I mean, it took me a couple of days. So what I had to do is split this build up. I wanted to show you in detail how I made these towers because I really enjoy doing this like trick to make something round but still small. because you could just use those walls, but it would be really, really large. But this is just 1 meter, yeah, just a 1 meter square size. I love the pattern that the roof made from using those pieces and rotating them around. It kind of made it like kind of flowery, kind of like a kaleidoscope as well. I did discover that I could have probably just used those art shapes and just put a cone or something on top, because I ended up putting like a little mini cone on top of this roof as like a point, because I didn't like the flat bit of the top of the roof. I could have just used a large cone and just put a cone on top, but what's the fun in that? I got to put like this little cute little curly bit on the edge as well. So you might notice that everything is pink and frilly. I did put an accent of purple and I added a little bit of white in this as well as I carried on into the build, but the majority of it is going to be pink. I was going off like Disney princess castles and they were like white and blue, so I was going pink and purple instead. Making the buildings a lot smaller was an added challenge when I wanted to add in windows and doors, because the doors were huge, like they did not fit whatsoever. But the windows work out okay. They are flat and putting them on a rounded surface doesn't really work all that well, but at least I can actually put a window on rounded pieces, because in The Sims you cannot do that. And there we go, there's the white bits into the build as well. I made like windows and stuff white just to make them stand out a little bit more. I'm really happy with how these little towers worked out in the end. I did try to make a door out of the art shapes instead of using a regular door, because the doors were too big for my little towers, but it ended up kind of looking like a cartoon mouse hole. Like I wanted this to be quite cartoony and cutesy, but I didn't want it, like the door just didn't look right next to the windows, so I just tried to add in extra details. These art shapes are great and they do come in handy later on. I will be using them in the next video. Even though I tried to add in like extra little details, like I tried to put like a border around the door in a different color, tried to put like little patterns on the inside of the door, but nothing really worked how I was picturing it. It's the trouble when you're creating things though, isn't it? It's like whatever's in your mind sometimes doesn't really match up to what you can create in these types of games. So I'd love to maybe scale some things. Like in The Sims, you can press the square bracket keys, and it might be shift or control with it. I can never really remember. I haven't built in The Sims in a while. Planet Zoo is too much fun. But yeah, you can scale and resize things in The Sims, and I kind of sometimes want to go and reach for those keys and try and resize things in Planet Zoo as well, but it is not possible, unfortunately. And then to make it easier to duplicate these towers for the rest of the shelter build, I just saved it into a group, so you can just quickly copy the group over. And to make this shelter a little bit more interesting, what I wanted to do is make a walkway from the raised pathway by the tapir habitat and build a stairway down into this habitat and connect it into the castle shelter, so the guests can walk into like the back of the castle and see like little sleepy piggies. I know they're technically not pigs, but it makes it cuter, I guess. And I started with the pathway, which I shouldn't have. And I do end up getting rid of that, because lining up the walls to the pathway is harder than lining the pathway to the walls. So what you can do is build your building and then align. When you go into pathways, then you can align to grid and select the grid of your building instead of trying to align your building to your pathways. I am still using some of the East Asian style building pieces to keep it tied in with the whole zoo as well. The brick that I originally chose is too dark in comparison to the pink towers. So I ended up swapping the brick out for this style of brick because it had those nice bumpy parts that made it look more like a castle. And then I used the like L-shaped walls to make like a wider entrance for the front and the back, because the back's going to be the entrance for the guests and the front is going to be the entrance for the Barbarossa. It's already looking like a Disney princess castle with those little bumpy bits on it, but I was not done there. This took me so long because I wanted to have so many little details into it. I wanted to add more towers in, and I didn't want it like super complicated. I still needed the Barbarossa to be able to get in, but I thought these towers along the entrance parts were really nice because I made them like slightly shorter as well, so there's a little bit more of a dynamic to it. I really enjoy having viewers' suggestions, if you can't tell. So I know I have another video for the Barbarossa coming up on Wednesday. But if you have any other ideas for these animal habitats, I would love to read them and take them into consideration, because this was just amazing. But you don't always have to do things that I enjoy building. Like, I know I love pink and purple and making cutesy things, but I also enjoy doing some realism stuff as well. So definitely let me know if you have any ideas for any of the other Southeast Asian animals and what kinds of habitats you would like me to build for them. I'm really stuck on what to do for the exhibit animal, the giant leaf insect. Like, I'm really not sure what to do with the exhibit animal. Like, this one's tricky. The only thing I can think of right now is a giant leaf. And I don't know how I would build a giant leaf, nor do I think that it would actually look that good. But, you know, they camouflage themselves into leaves, so to camouflage the entire habitat or like entire exhibit into a giant leaf kind of sounds a bit fun. And I was really glad I found some roof pieces that could be recolored. I was starting to get a little bit nervous that I couldn't make things all pink and purple. I didn't want a boring roof colour, but this metal one does recolour and I could make that purple too, which matches in quite nicely with the tower roofs. And a few of the buildings around the zoo have like this double roof pattern thing. So I thought that would add a little bit extra to that middle taller tower area. That doesn't really add much to the habitat though, it's just a nice little added extra. But the more I add to this, the more it looks like a dollhouse. I love it. I was really determined to add in lots of extra little details into this to make it stand out and just look a little bit more like a proper castle instead of it just being like this big box. The like longer parts of this with the roof was like the trickiest thing to roof. I finish off this build with this one, but I wasn't super happy with how this turned out, and I do end up wiggling it around a little bit to give it a little bit of a difference. I wanted this to match in a little bit with the cherry blossom courtyard though. So it looks like the buildings kind of all match in, and then I needed to put like a ceiling or a roof on the rest of it so the guests could have shelter and the Barbarossa could have actual shelter. And the windows light up, which is amazing, so it gives that little extra realism as well because the windows light up. And there we go, this is where I align to grid, so my pathway fits in perfectly with the building instead of trying to align the building to the pathway. And I'm using some two-way glass or one-way glass. Why do I always forget which one it is? Is it one-way glass? It must be, right? Because only one way you can see. But yeah, I'm using the one-way glass to stop the Barbarossa from being able to see the guests walking into their habitat, and the guests can still see obviously, so that's all good. I did end up yeah, this is where I wasn't super happy with my Roofing, yes, because I needed the building to be slightly wider than I originally built it to line up with the one-way glass barrier. And because everything isn't on a proper grid, the roofing just hates me. Like, this was not easy because I didn't make it large. And I know that doesn't sound right, but yeah, like the bigger things are, the easier they are to build in Planet Zoo. The small things are just difficult because not all of the roof pieces kind of fit tidy in there. So yeah, now I'm having a look to see what the guests can see, and they've got a really good view of the habitat and the inside of the habitat. So I'm super happy about that. And yeah, doesn't it look like a proper castle now? I'm not done. Obviously, we do have another video of adding extra details into this, but I thought this was a good place to finish off because it does actually finish off looking like a castle. And there we go. I got rid of those weird doors because I didn't think we needed them. But yeah, I think this is a good place to finish off because we're adding in lots of extra details in the next episode. And you'll be happy to know that I will be adding even more pink and frilly things into this habitat build. So yeah, I'm gonna finish it off there. Let me know what you think of it so far, and let me know what animal we should build a habitat for next. We have the binturong, the proboscis monkey, the sun bear, clouded leopard, and the giant leaf insect. So let me know which one we should do next. I can't wait for all of your suggestions. I love getting suggestions in the comments. It is so much fun, like kind of working together to create a zoo as well. I just started it off with the cherry blossom theme, but yes, that is good for now, but I'm gonna add loads more details in. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button, and if you haven't already and you would like to, it would mean a lot to me if you could subscribe and hit the bell to be notified whenever I upload a new video. I upload on Wednesdays and Saturdays. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.